All right, let's talk a little bit about this. There's a broader move right now to deal with patents, and there's a House committee that's taking on pricing and patents for the top-selling drug Humira. We also have the G20 just committed to the patent pooling for COVID-19 vaccines, which is a big deal. And so much of this was undercut by Bill Gates and the COVID, I think they called it. And then there's also, you've got progressives now are pushing Biden to avoid putting pharma allies on the patent board. Here is Katie Porter with a whiteboard of justice grilling pharma CEOs. They've got her off the Financial Services Committee because they didn't want her beating up on banksters anymore. But here she is with the farmsters.
Mr. Gonzalez, how much did AbbVie spend on litigation and settlements from 2013 to 2018?
I don't have that number offhand. We'll be happy to give it to you.
Okay, $1.6 billion, $2.45 billion on R&D, $1.6 billion in litigation and settlements. What about marketing and advertising? How much does AbbVie spend on that?
Well, marketing and advertising, we spend about $4 billion a year.
Yep, 4.71 billion. How about executive compensation, 2013 to 2018?
2013 to 2018, it's probably on average about $60 million a year.
Try 334 on for size. Oh. Now, how much did AbbVie spend on stock buybacks and stock buybacks and dividends to enrich your shareholders from 2013 to 2018?
Well, stock buybacks, if you actually look at just pure stock buybacks, it would be about $13 billion.
Stock buybacks and dividends is the question, sir.
Dividends, and have to come back with a number for that over that period of time.
$50 billion. So, Mr. Gonzalez, you're spending all this money to make sure you make money rather than spending money to invest in, develop drugs, and help patients with affordable life-saving drugs. You lie to patients when you charge them twice as much for an unimproved drug, and then you lie to policymakers when you tell us that R&D justifies those price increases. The big pharma fairy tale is one of groundbreaking R&D that justifies astronomical prices. But the pharma reality is that you spend most of your company's money making money for yourself and your shareholders. And the fact that you're not honest about this with patients and with policymakers, that you're feeding us lies, that we must pay astronomical prices to get innovative treatments is false. The American people, the patients, deserve so much better.
I mean, the only thing that is missing from that equation, and I don't know about AbbVie as a company per se, but I would also like to see a dot on there as to how much of their product is a function of U.S. government investment. Because, you look at the astronomical amount of money, let's say Pfizer's making off of this vaccine, or Moderna for that matter. And it's great. The vaccine has been amazing. But the reality is that like a couple of $1 billion, if they're spending $2.5 billion on R&D, I don't know what Pfizer does. I imagine they spend a little bit more. But you got $1.5 billion guaranteed purchase of regardless of what the vaccine turns out to be by the U.S. government. You don't have any constraints on your R&D. You just go for it because it's not going to cost you anything. And so it is. I mean, there it is right there. It's all right there. The R&D thing is just a lie.
Well, even more to that point, Sam, is that a lot of pharma R&D also goes towards purchasing portfolios of drugs made by smaller pharmaceutical manufacturers who cannot afford to go through the clinical trial process that has been, let's be honest, rigged by these big pharmaceutical companies to their favor so they can buy up these small drugs because only they can afford to go through some of these R&D processes. So a lot of this R&D money is also going towards essentially just buying up, the already made molecules from, people, let's be honest, a lot of people in their basement just doing like our drug research, or a few people from MIT, like 5 or 6 people from MIT who are just going to sell off, their new drug for asthma or whatever, to a company that may or may not either put it to market or just bury it the same way tech companies do.
Yeah, that's the other untold story about this is God knows, what kind of medicines could be made available if it wasn't subject to people basically buying it and just to sit on it.
I'm trying to look up here what percentage of a lot of these big pharma companies spend on researching new drug development, because by my recollection, that's also an incredibly small percentage. And Brandon's right. I mean, these behemoths are able to buy up all the drugs because they have that amount of money to sell them and to develop them, etc. And that amount of money pales in comparison to what the CEOs make and what they get. I mean, I wish she would have. I know that's not her position in this hearing, but the natural conclusion of this is we really could cut out a lot of the fat and have much more efficient innovation if these companies were nationalized.
Right. Or, I mean, or nationalized in the sense, too, that like, hey, if you're going to, here's this money and this is what we get for it.